lovey-dovey's. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Happy day 15th of March Makeup Madness. And I do realize I have missed a few videos and skipped around a little, but they are recorded. I just have to get them up. Yesterday I was in the hospital all day getting Remicade, and they were very slow about it. So that is why yesterday I was MIA, and today I'm still not feeling so hot, but I did want to get this video up. And I do apologize, I kind of look like it's not so great, and I am in my PJs still because it's been one of those après Remicade days. But anyway, I did want to, as I mentioned before, test the Dior Backstage Blender. And again, that is this new white one with the angle and the round side and the point that looks very much like the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. And I did pick this up at Walgreens for, I think it was $4.99, so it was cheaper there. So I was really happy to find this. I got the last one and I was just very happy. So as you can see, I have not taken this out yet, but I am going to essentially do the same thing on both sides using these respective sponges. And if you have not seen the part of my review where I test this against the Beauty Blender, I will link that here. But today I am going to use the Dior Backstage Blender dry because I did not find really a big difference in using this dry or wet. And I am going to use the Real Techniques sponge wet. So I am going to pull this out and then get it all nice and soaked up. Oh, it's soft. I've never felt one of these before. This is my first Real Techniques sponge. So I'm excited to see what the difference will be when this is wet. Just quickly to compare the shapes. The only real differences between these two sponges is that the Dior is much denser, and this is more like, it's a little bit more dense than the Beauty Blender, but it's definitely not as dense as the Dior. And also the design is a little bit different. The Dior sponge has a rounded egg shape with, it looks like the side just cut off there at the point. So the point has both a rounded and a flat side, whereas here it is as if they cut this part of the egg off. So there is also, of course, a point here and here as there would be here, but the point itself is not cut. So this is just the tip, and that is really the big difference between these two. Obviously, they both have flat sides and rounded sides and points. I'm gonna get this wet and I will be right back. Alright, so I have dampened this. You can see it has grown a little bit in size. I did want to say, for those of you who have not used the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge, that this holds a lot of water. So you really want to wring it out. And like I said, I usually put it in a towel like this just to get the extra water out, just so it's not dripping any water. So it's just basically damp. So that is this one. It looks so happy. I love the color. It looks like a sweet potato. That makes me happy. I know I'm a little crazy. That's okay. At any rate, today I am going to basically use both sponges in the way that the Dior Backstage Blender recommends me to use the Backstage Blender, and that is using this diagram. And again, these are the parts of the sponge, and these are the places on the face where you use each part of the sponge. So again, if you have not seen the first part of this video comparing the Dior sponge with the Beauty Blender, I do recommend you watch that. So I'm going to use the Dior Backstage Blender and the Real Techniques sponge in the same kind of way, just to see how they apply in the same application manner side by side. So I'm going to use the Dior Backstage Blender on this side of my face and the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge on this side of my face. I'm just going to put this weird little diagram up here for reference. Like I said in the first part of this review video series, if you will, this is really the only kind of real direction in this whole pamphlet. It gives you a little background and some application tips, but more or less the instructions basically say to do this. So that is what I am going to do. Also, I did want to mention I just did some very minor color correcting again and a little concealing. You can see it on my nose. My allergies are out of control today. I also have a little hive there that I covered whatever. So I am using, again, the NARS All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation. And this is, again, in shade Light 3 Gobi. I do think, again, I could probably go a tiny bit darker to the Fiji shade, but this isn't a terrible match. I'm going to start with the Dior again, and I'm going to use the same number of pumps of foundation. This is 5. And since my last review, I have not washed this, so I'm hoping it will suck up a little less product. We will see. So the instructions say to take a little of that on the flat end like this. Start here and here and here, and then you want to swipe this in horizontal motions from the center out like that. It still sucked all of that up. My skin is also a little bit dry today, I think because of all the saline I got yesterday, so please ignore that as well. So that's more or less step 1. Step 2 is to take this rounded side and then buff this into the rest of the areas of the face, except for the contours, like this part of the nose and the eyes and right here. That is for the tip, but the round part first. 5 again, and as I mentioned in my last video, the round part does seem to suck up a little less product than the flat side. So this is here and here. It's kind of tough to do half your face. Like that, I guess. Good enough, maybe? I should do this part too, just to even that out. And then I don't really like this flat tip end. I like the rounded side, so I'm going to use the rest of that foundation. Like I said, that definitely sucks up less foundation than the flat side. So I'm going to take that and do it here as per the diagram on the side of the nose. And then around the eyes. And usually I don't really put foundation here at all, but for demonstration purposes, I will. Sorry, I have red lip gloss on, as you can see, so that's probably gonna get a little bit funky. Anyway, that is about how that applies. Again, it applies very quickly, and you can see, again, it is a very full coverage kind of a look. This is listed as a light to buildable coverage sponge, but I will say the same thing as I said in the first part of this video, which is I don't really know about that because, as you can see, one pass is pretty full coverage. And like I said before, it doesn't really look cakey, but I don't know that you would want to put a second layer of foundation on after that. So that is the Dior Backstage Blender. And I have to say that time it did use a little less makeup, which is a good thing. It was about, I'll say 9 pumps with what's left on my hand. That's better than before. It was like 12, I think, before. So I am hoping it will reach that saturation point sometime in the future. So I am going back in on the other side of my face. 5, the same way, using the Real Technique sponge. And like I said, I have never used this before. I'm sure all of you who have this sponge out there use it in different ways. I am just really trying to mirror the same application method with this sponge as I did with the Dior, just to really get a good comparison. I'm going to take that flat side, and you can see that sucks up quite a bit too, and do the same thing. Oh, that used all that foundation already. See if I can get any out of there. Yeah, I guess it comes out. Okay, so horizontal swipes. I might like that better. I don't know. We'll see. More foundation. I'm going to do the same thing again with the round side. I guess this round side because it doesn't have the points. Get the rest of this. And then I'll come back and do that a little bit with the point. And I guess that's just to kind of buff it in a little bit better. And that's still the same. The round side didn't use as much foundation as the flat side did, which is interesting to me. Interesting. So now I'm going to take the point, which is obviously a thicker point than the Dior sponge because it doesn't have the cut off of it like this does. This point is definitely similar to the Beauty Blender point, although hypothetically you could use like this side, but that's kind of big. So I'm going to try this. For here. And eye area. Okay, so consensus. I'm still fighting with these bumps from that mask I tried however many weeks ago. So yeah, I'm not happy about that. At any rate, you can see that the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge is definitely more of a sheer application, which could be because I did use it damp. And of course, the Dior sponge does not really have a big difference whether you use it wet or dry. It is a marginally sheer application if you use this damp, but it does not alter the consistency or the size of the sponge. So I don't really suggest that. I do suggest that you use this one dry. But this is obviously damp, and you can see it does kind of give you a little bit more of a sheer coverage. You can see my veins there. You can see my veins here and over here. I don't think you can quite as much just because I do think this gives you kind of full coverage in one pass. So I'm not sure that these are comparable either. Again, personally, I like the look of more sheared out foundation, and I do think that this NARS All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation is a pretty high coverage foundation to begin with, but I do prefer the look of the sheer foundation using this or the Beauty Blender as opposed to the more full coverage foundation you get with the Dior Backstage Blender. But again, it is all a matter of personal preference and what you like. I don't think either side looks bad. You can just see that this is more of a natural kind of finish and this is a more full coverage finish. I really thought that these would be more comparable. I do really think that the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge is actually more comparable to the Beauty Blender. So I'm gonna have to do a video comparing these two. But as for the Dior sponge, I think if you really like a full coverage foundation, it applies so quickly, and I have not practiced with this. I did it the first time in the first video and now the second time in this video, and it is incredibly easy to use. This one is also easy to use, but this is easy to use and it applies your foundation very, very quickly. And again, if you like a fuller coverage or you're looking for that fuller coverage for whatever reason, if you're going out or you have any kind of breakouts on your face, whatever the case may be, I'd say this is a good tool just to have in your makeup arsenal, just in case you want that more full coverage look and then you don't have to go back with a second layer using this Real Techniques sponge or the Beauty Blender sponge. This, you get it in one pass, and I do like that about this sponge. I don't really think this is comparable with either of these. Honestly, it's a different kind of sponge. It's a totally different animal. I have not found a tool that is similar to this at all. I'm gonna say I really like it, and if I were to call this, does this really work, I would probably give this a 9 out of 10 just because it does apply very evenly. It is very easy to use. It has a very low learning curve. You don't have to practice a lot. And I just think that if you ever want that kind of full coverage look, or if that's just the look you go for on a normal basis, this is definitely a good tool to have. And considering this is $20 and this is $20, maybe the next time you need a beauty blender, you might want to pick up one of these instead. And especially considering I have found these fairly comparable. And if you're buying this for $5, you could have both of these for $25. So that might be all you really need. But as for the Dior Backstage Blender, I do really like it. Bad thing I really have to say about this is that contrary to Dior's claim that this allows you to build your foundation, it does apply a full coverage foundation in one pass. My other con about this is that it does still soak up so much foundation. I am really hoping that this will reach the point of saturation. Mine is starting to get full of makeup already. Even with this video, it did use less product this time than the first time. So I do have high hopes that this little guy is going to reach its saturation point and stop using up so much foundation. As for the Dior Backstage Blender, I do think it is worth picking up. There are times you want to have a fuller coverage, and I do think this is the tool to use for that. And if you're trying to do a flawless face of makeup in as little time as possible, this does the job and it does it quickly. I really like this. I don't have much bad to say about it, and that's really my review. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, if you prefer a more natural light coverage foundation or if you prefer a more full coverage flawless kind of foundation, and what you think of the Dior Backstage Blender. I hope you really enjoyed this video and it was helpful for you. If you have any other questions, please leave them below in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for your time, support, and for watching. If you have not done so already, please do subscribe, because although these are out of order, I really am trying to make a video every day in March, and I will upload them as soon as possible. Also, you are eligible to enter my 6 giveaways, and I have come up with more giveaway items, so that's a good thing. And I will also link my official entry video in the description below. I will also leave in the description again where you can buy the Dior Backstage Blender, the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge, and of course the Beauty Blender. I hope you're all having a happy and healthy day today, and I will see you tomorrow for March Makeup Madness. It's gonna be a fun one. Have a great one, everybody. Bye!